Hi, this is Robin Hood of Sherwood Forest by Ann McGovern, Chapter 4. How Little John Becomes the Sheriff's Servant. Being certain that none noticed his leave-taking, Robin Hood slipped away from the great hall and made his way to the kitchen to seek Little John. Had Robin but known what trouble Little John was in at that very moment, he would have hastened his steps. For that tall knave, having naught to eat for many an hour, was asking the sheriff's steward for some food. "Good Sir Steward," he begged, "a little venison pasty, if it please thee, and some cool ale to wash it down." "Be gone," said the steward, for he was jealous of the favors the sheriff had bestowed upon this new serving man. "Thou art a fool, Reynold Greenleaf, to think that I would unlock the pantry at this hour." And he rattled the keys before Little John's nose. "Take thine hunger, and to bed with thee." "I'd rather crack thy fat crown," Little John replied in anger. The steward, noting how red in the face Little John was growing, took a fast accounting of the breadth and width of his foe, and started for the door. But for all his size, Little John was fleet of foot, and before the steward could open the door, Little John smote him such a blow that even Robin Hood, hiding behind the velvet draperies, could hear the crack. The steward groaned and rolled on the floor, thinking to rise. But with his head still ringing, he remained where he was. Little John seized the steward's keys, opened the pantry door, and helped himself to wine, meat, and bread. "I drink to thy health," said Little John, "even if thou wilt not drink with me." Robin Hood was almost doubled over with laughter at what had gone on. He was about to enter the kitchen when he heard footsteps coming down the hall. Again, he hid behind the draperies till he heard Little John exclaim, "How now, good Sir Cook? Join me in feasting on the very foods thou hast prepared. This venison pasty is fit for a king, and I swear this ale is the best that ever wet thy lips. Step over that bundle of fat rags lying on the floor there, and set to." Now the cook was stronger in body and braver in heart than the steward, and so he feared not Little John. "What manner of man art thou, Reynold Greenleaf, to win our master's favor, and then help thyself to his food and drink?" Whereupon he dealt Little John 3 bold strokes with his staff. Smarting with the sting, Little John raised his own quarterstaff, saying, "Truly, thou art a brave soul to come between me and my feast, and those clouds nearly did away with my appetite. But let us see whether this will bring it back." And Little John thought to give back to the cook in blows that which he had received. The cook raised his staff, and so did Little John, and there in the pantry they exchanged blows, staff against staff. To Robin Hood, listening outside, they sounded like 2 Sherwood stags locked in combat. So busy were they in battle that neither noticed when Robin Hood stepped through the door. Robin was curious to see who would be the victor, for the cook seemed as large in size as his right-hand man. But he saw neither a victor nor a loser, for so skillfully did they parry each other's blows that neither did harm to the other. As soon as one shouted, "You vile knave," the other roared, "You villain lout." Then Little John swung and missed again, shouting, "Thy name may be Cook, but I'll make better mincemeat of thee than thou couldst in thy own kitchen." The cook swung, and likewise missing, cried, "Aye, cook I am, and I'll show all 7 tall feet of thee that I can baste thy head as well as I baste my roasts." Then Robin saw that both men were beginning to fight with shortened breath, so he stepped between them. Laughing, he said, "Never have I seen such lusty knaves. Methinks you would rather eat a pasty and drink together than crack heads and break bones." At that, both men dropped their staves willingly. The steward, who had been hiding under the table during the bout, saw that the climate of the room had changed, and without stopping to make the acquaintance of Robin Hood, bid a hasty retreat. The cook, now jolly, laughed and said, "Since I cannot fight you both, I'll feed you till I hear stop." Away he went, returning in a twinkling with a large platter of cold pheasant and the sheriff's best wine. The 3 ate and drank with much merriment. Then Robin turned to the cook and said, "Now that we love one another well, it is time you knew us by our rightful names. This knave you call Reynold Greenleaf is known in Sherwood Forest by the name of Little John. As for myself, these butcher's clothes cover Robin Hood." The cook, dropping his meat and sputtering on a mouthful of wine, cried, "Mercy, I beg thee. Thy name is hated in this place. Let me go in peace, and I swear the sheriff will not hear of Little John nor Robin Hood from my lips." "Hold, good cook," Robin said, laughing. "Thou hast naught to fear. By my faith, thou art so strong with the quarterstaff, and so nimble with thy pots and pans, that, if thou art willing, thou shouldst leave the sheriff's house, and come live a joyous life in Sherwood Forest. Thou wilt have finer food and sweeter drink than ever the sheriff laid upon the table. 40 gold coins will be thy pay, and 2 suits of Lincoln green besides. What sayest thou?" "Whew, right gladly do I say aye," cried the cook happily, and raising his goblet, said, "I drink to thee, and by my troth, I swear I will serve thee faithfully and well." Then Robin Hood told his companions how he came to be in butcher's clothes, and all about his bold scheme to trick the sheriff on the morrow. "And now, what of thee, Little John?" Robin asked. "What has come to pass since we parted on the road early this morn?" "Eager to have a better adventure than thee, good master, I set out for the fair at Nottingham town," Little John began. "I thought to bring home proof of my adventures in the form of a prize captured in wrestling, or in shooting with the longbow, or perchance a bout with the quarterstaff." The fair was right merry. The minstrels sang like nightingales, and the lasses, I wot, were fairer than ever I did see in all England. Many a turn I danced with them before I went to seek stronger sport. When I came to a wooden platform, where stood a lusty fellow swinging a great staff, and shouting at the crowd below in this manner, "Are all yeomen of Nottingham such cowards that none will come forward and have a merry bout with me?" I asked who the saucy knave was, and learned his name, Eric of Lincoln, and his fame, cracking the crown of anyone who took up staff against him. Then he spied me amid the others, for, you know, I stand a full head and shoulders above most men, and am hard to hide. The braggart shouted for all to hear. Thy legs are strong, thy shoulders broad, but thy courage must indeed be tiny. Now, much did I want to keep my head smooth and free from cracks, but I do not take kindly to the name of coward. So, without a word, I leapt upon the platform while the crowd cheered. Seeing Eric of Lincoln at close range, I knew he could send me spinning if my skill should fault me for an instant. So, standing firm guard, I started boldly and fetched the braggart a sound buffet on the shoulder. Then, swift as a hummingbird, did he whack my ribs. And so began the bout that people said later was the finest that ever took place in Nottingham town. Right deftly we stroked and parried, and so well matched were we that neither could smite the other the winning blow. Soon Eric grew angry and began to strike with such force that his blows made thunderclaps sound like sneezes. But I parried his strokes well, and at the same time looked for a way to send his staff to kingdom come. When I saw the chance, I seized it, striking a blow on Eric's back, and then right speedily a blow to his ribs, and then a stinging blow on his crown. His staff flew into the air, and he fell to the platform like a sack of flour. So loud were the cheers that people left the booths from all sides of the fair and came running to see what the clamor was about. And then one man came up, and as all around doffed their caps, I guessed he was a person of some importance. I quickly learned he was none other than our enemy, the Sheriff of Nottingham. He shook my hand and said, Thou art the stoutest fellow my eyes ever beheld, and truly I would like to see thee in my service. I thought to myself, oh, gladly will I accept to see what mischief I can do. Then surely I shall win our wager. But not wanting to appear too eager, I said, My name is Reynold Greenleaf, and Reynold Greenleaf is worthy a goodly pay. What have you to offer? The sheriff, not liking to open his purse wider than he had to, said, Thou shalt have good food to eat, sweet wine to drink, and fine clothes to put on thy strong back. And the pay? I asked again, enjoying his squirmings. Then the sheriff said, 20 gold coins, but in such a low voice that none could bear witness to his promise. After a while, the prize to the winner was announced, and, good master, you will laugh to hear what it was, for we have better in our own greenwood. 2 fat steers did I get for my trouble. I angered the sheriff straight off, for I offered to give the steers to the good people at the fair, and he had thought to make his table heavy with my prize. But I cared not for his anger, and all the way to this place I laughed at my first trick and thought up others, and much is the trouble I have caused since I came here. So, fair master, what do you think of my adventure? Do I win the wager? Robin Hood and the cook could hardly stop laughing at Little John's tale. Then Robin said, Let the cook be the judge, for he has heard both our stories. What say, fair fellow? Who has had the best adventure? The cook, still laughing, said, I swear I cannot tell. One man turns butcher, the other servant, and both come to the same place to play merry pranks on that villain, my former master. "Nay, you must declare a winner," Little John said. So the cook thought harder, and at last said, "Ah, I know well who it may be. No one but myself. Truly, the best adventure is mine, for soon I leave this place to make my merry life in Sherwood Forest, and to keep alive the memory of my former master. I shall take with me the sheriff's finest plates and silver, all I can carry." "Oh, for thee, jolly cook," said Robin Hood, taking from his purse 3 silver pennies. "Right gladly do I give these to thee. Now, leave the sheriff's house with his booty before thou art discovered, and Little John do likewise. Tomorrow we 3 shall meet in the greenwood. Tell our men to make a wondrous feast for our guest, the Sheriff of Nottingham." And so once more Little John and Robin Hood said their farewells, but this time Little John had the company of the cook, and the promise of more adventure on the morrow. The end.